nerds, and other unfortunates have been fervently waiting for has finally arrived. It's time for TMI, Confessionals of the Nerd Kind. And now, your hosts, Jeff Nerf Herder Chandler and Jim KAIJU Baker. And now, let's get on with the show. Here is TMI.
This year just flew. I'm not in the mood yet. I'm hoping by the time this drops.
Well, we got to grab that turkey. He's probably also not expecting it to come up. Oh, there he goes. There goes the TMI turkey.
Oh, there he goes. We're not going to pardon him this year?
We could. You know, he's been good this past year, so.
Okay, all right.
He's been quiet. We've never heard from him on this show since last year. So
I'll get a tofurkey. How's that?
Welcome, everyone, to our annual WOR Channel 9 inspired Monster Marathon. And we always do, right around Thanksgiving time, we cover one Godzilla movie and one King Kong movie, just like they used to show back in the day on Channel 9 here in our New York, New Jersey area. I don't know if you pulled all the old episode numbers, but
I did.
You did.
Last week, I said that this was the 7th annual, and then I started crunching the numbers, and I'm like, we've only been doing this show since 2018. So technically that's only 6 years. So I'm like, how are we at 7? So yeah, we had a bonus episode in the middle of the year, episode 61, which we covered the legendary Godzilla, King of the Monsters, and Frankenstein Conquers the World. We have actually covered quite a lot. We've got like 8 episodes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 episodes that I counted where we've covered Godzilla.
Yeah, and we've only barely scratched the surface.
Yeah, they're out there. We got tons of episodes. Maybe we'll hit on some of them later and I can mention it. All you have to do is go to tmiconfessionalspodcast.com. We have a listen button and every episode is listed there.
Yep. I said that we barely scratched the surface, but we have run out of movies that they used to actually play on WR. Right. We started with all of those because that was the high point of the kid calendar back in the day. Was the kid
calendar,
was Thanksgiving and the day after, not because of shopping, but because of King Kong and Godzilla. And I'm sure it wasn't just a New York phenomenon. I'm sure there's other channels in other areas, other regions that probably did this as well. Because, kids are home, so they're going to put programming on the kids want to watch.
Yeah, I have very fond memories of these. To me, this Thanksgiving window, I grew up upstate, so a little bit out of the tri-state area. But yeah, waking up that morning, watching HR Puff and stuff, whatever, going to grandma's house for Thanksgiving, stealing the turkey tail that my aunt was put aside for herself.
Yeah, and maybe we're dating ourselves. Hopefully there's somebody out there that actually knows what we're talking about. That's a carryover from last week, I
was going to say, who knows what we're talking about? Kevin Smith.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure he's very well acquainted with the WOR holiday special.
So speaking of that, we're actually getting some pretty solid listens on YouTube for that episode.
We are. I don't know why everybody goes to YouTube because you can't see us, but thank you.
Maybe that's why.
Yeah.
They're like, I don't need to look at these guys, but that's fine. everyone's migrating over there and video, no one needs to see me
or me.
So yeah, but thank you. If you're listening to us on YouTube, appreciate it.
And a big thank you to whoever is listening in South Carolina, because whoever it is binged all of our episodes over like a 2 or 3 week period, a handful of episodes a day. So I'm pretty sure it's not a bot. I'm pretty sure it is somebody out there that's clicking on us. So thanks. Okay. So traditionally, We do Godzilla up front, right? And then King Kong?
I would have to say that Godzilla comes first.
Yes, and
he is our guy.
Apologies to the Kong fans, but we will get to Kong. We promise.
There's a scrub button on there. You just keep hitting forward 30 seconds.
And while we have a plethora of Godzilla films to still cover, we are rapidly running out of Kong films. So
rapidly. I think
we may have to get creative in the coming years.
Well, I would think moving forward, like Peter Jackson's Kong would.
And Skull Island. We haven't done that yet.
I would almost put that in a 5 bucket.
Maybe we should save that as the big final Kong film is Skull Island before we move on from Kong.
Unfortunately, we now have to talk about King Kong.
Yeah, we've been staving this one off purposely. So today we're going into the 80s, which is, I mentioned it last week, it's a very dry, arid time for kaiju movies, especially Godzilla. There was only 2 that came out in the 80s and one at the very, very tail end. So I don't really even count that one.
I was going to ask because you over the last couple of years, you've schooled us on these eras of Godzilla. And this, I had a hard time kind of like what era this falls under. And I guess it's the Heisei?
Heisei. The Heisei era. Now,
but there's only 2 movies in that era.
No. This is not true.
Okay.
Because the Heisei era, even this is where it gets a little confusing. Because the original Godzilla films that we all know and love from the 60s and 70s and 50s, they say that they are part of the Showa era. And these names, Showa, Heisei, these are all referred to the leadership of Japan. It kind of corresponds.
So like when we talk about a movie here, we call it like the Reagan era?
Yeah.
Interesting.
So again, the Showa era covers the early Godzilla, and then that ended with Terror of Mechagodzilla in 1975.
Okay.
Technically, this movie that we're about to talk about today, Godzilla 1985, or also known as The Return of Godzilla, came out while the Showa era was still in place. But because it is the first movie of the next series, it is lumped in with the Heisei era. Because everything that came after this, up until Godzilla versus Destoroyah, is in the Heisei era. So this goes from 80s to mid-90s, this era.
Okay. And then the Millennium era does not
start. The Millennium era, yeah. They got away from the political names and then just went into the Millennium era after.
So then what is the Reiwa area? What is that?
That is only got 2 movies. Shin Godzilla, sorry. And -1. That's the era that we're currently in.
Test later.
As clear as stone, right?
Got it. Don't got it.
But yes, this is Godzilla 1985 that we are talking about. And I wanted specifically to talk about this one because this was a huge deal to me. Because it had been 10 years since the Japanese release of Terror of Mechagodzilla. Now, the late 70s was actually a banner time for Godzilla in the U.S. The series had ended in Japan, but movies like Godzilla vs. Megalon, Godzilla vs. the Bionic Monster, otherwise known as Mechagodzilla, were finally making their way to America and being released as new movies in 1976, 1977. And the last movie that came out in Japan in 1975, Terror of Mechagodzilla, came out in the U.S. in 78, 79. So it held over for a few years in the U.S. and he became extremely popular in the U.S. during that time. You know, look at the Mattel, the part of the Shogun Warriors line. You started to see toys in stores made by American companies.
So let me ask you, when did the Godzilla animated series cartoon?
79. So that was riding on the coattails of the relative success of Megalon and Bionic Monster and movies like that came out.
And when anybody remembers Godzuki, that's where he came from.
Yes, Godzuki came from the much maligned Godzuki.
Up from the depths, 30 stories tall. breathing. All right.
Godzilla Godzuki and Scrappy Doo can go on a raft and
those are the Shmoo brothers. They should all gotten together and had their own show.
Yeah.
We'll
add in Cousin Oliver on that raft as well and send him off.
He's speaking of much misaligned.
Yeah.
Poor guy. Poor kid.
But yeah, so after 79, then I think America got all caught up with the movies that Toho had made in the earlier 70s, and then these movies got relegated to television. Now, because in 76, 77, when these final Godzilla movies were being released in theaters, I was probably 5 or 6 years old during those years.
Right.
And my parents were unwilling to bring me. I don't even know if they were playing locally. I remember seeing TV commercials for the movies coming out in theaters like Bionic Monster and Megalon. But I'm sure my father was not willing to go sit through, because I couldn't go alone. Sure. He was not willing to go sit through a Godzilla movie, so I never went to see them.
So even though your dad turned you on to Alien and some of this other stuff, he did not turn you on to the Godzilla.
No, this was completely my own finding. So it was something that I held dear, and I would have to wait for these movies to show up on TV, and it didn't take long for them to show up on TV, hence the WOR holiday special. But fast forward, I started seeing ads in early 1985 for this new Godzilla movie, and we didn't have internet back then, right? So I was unaware. What? I was unaware that there was a new Godzilla movie, even in Japan. So this movie, Godzilla 1985, is based on the Japanese film The Return of Godzilla, which came out in Japan in 1984.
Right.
So it took a year. Toho shopped it. They were hoping, because it didn't do as well as they hoped it would, which is surprising in its Japanese release. It did okay. It wasn't a bomb, but just to give you an idea, on its opening weekend, it came in number 3, behind Ghostbusters and Gremlins. So Ghostbusters, Gremlins, and then Godzilla
with
in
the
Japan.
Old and with the new. There you go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I didn't see it myself, but apparently in the Japanese version, maybe in the American version, you can actually see the Ghostbusters symbol in the background as Godzilla is wreaking havoc in Tokyo at the end of the movie.
Really?
Yeah.
I will say that I had to watch this on my phone.
Oh, no.
Yeah, I could not. So both of these movies are actually really hard to find.
Yeah, the Godzilla 1985, the last time it was released anywhere, in the US at least, and I'm sure it's not released in Japan because it's the American version.
Actually, okay, go ahead. Yeah, the American version is the one that's hard to find.
Yeah, the last time the American version was released anywhere was on VHS in 1997. It never has made an official debut on DVD. Forget Blu-ray.
No, VHS, Beta, and Laserdisc are the only 3 ways that you can get this movie.
Or unless you go to eBay and find a dealer that has taped it onto a DVR from a VHS source, and that's what I did. So I have a bootleg copy of Godzilla.
Well, you would send me the link from the our very favorite internet archives.
Yes, so you can get it there.
I just could not mirror it to my TV.
Oh, that's too bad.
And it was a really low res, so I was forced to watch it on my phone. But it's out there. I mean, if you want to dig, it is on this Internet Archives.
The version that's readily available, not readily, maybe I should take that word back, but somewhat available, is Return of Godzilla. So you can get it. The Blu-ray is out of print, but you can still buy it on DVD for about $25 on Amazon.
Okay.
Also, it is on Max. So I watched this and Godzilla 1985, so I could compare the two, and there are some discernible differences.
I'm very curious to see what's going on, because just like the original 1954, the American version just inserted entire scenes and characters that don't exist in the Japanese version.
Correct, yeah. And almost as an homage to the 1956 American version, because they bring back Steve Martin. Raymond Burr.
I wish that they just had replaced Raymond Burr with the original Steve Martin actor and just played it.
That would have been great, because they don't call him by his full name. They only call him
Steve
Mr. Martin.
Mr. Martin. And again, if you didn't know that was him in the original movie 20, 30 years prior, it doesn't make any sense. We'll get into it.
But for super nerds like me, even back in 1985, I was like, I knew exactly what they were doing.
It was Ironside.
So I was 14 when this movie came out in theaters. Right. So again, Toho didn't do that well with it. I don't know. It was made like 2 billion yen. I don't know how much that comes out to in American dollars, but they were hoping to recoup some of the money that they spent on it when they sold it to America, because that was the main reason why they were trying to get it released theatrically in America, so they can get some money back. So they shopped it to all the major studios. I think the highest offer was 2 million. They turned it down because they were looking for more. And they got actually less than that. So that was like a George Costanza move. No, let's hold out.
Yeah, it's hold out. And then all of a sudden you're like, yeah, we'll give you 500.
Yeah, so that was actually what they made. All the majors turned it down. The only one that took the offer was New World Pictures, which is Roger Corman's studio, right?
Sure, why wouldn't he? Yeah.
They spent $500,000 on it. So they spent $500,000 to get the film, to get the rights.
Yep, just to get the rights.
They spent $200,000 to film the new scenes, and I assume that that's including Raymond Burr's salary and what have you. $2.5 million for advertising, marketing. So they're in the whole 3.2, 3.3 million. It made 4 million at the U.S. box office. So a little in the black. I did read that it was a very good seller once it hit the VHS market. And this is back when the tapes were going for $80 a pop, when they weren't priced to sell, but it did sell. So they made 7 million off VHS sales on this. Yeah. So it was financially successful for New World.
That's probably how I watched it. Yeah. VHS.
Yeah. It's just a nostalgic thing anyway. Just when you start this thing, to see that New World Pictures logo come up.
No,
how many movies was that in front of that we watched back then? Gets right to the point, and I will say this, that the US version is probably 16 minutes shorter than the Japanese version.
It's shorter and they added stuff.
So there's a lot of scenes missing from the US version. And I think it's the better for it, because I was looking at the time rundown on the Japanese version. There's so much exposition and dialogue and discourse. The Japanese version is really about, not quite as heavy-handed in the nuclear allegory as the original was, but they try. There's a little of it in the US version. There's the argument between the Soviets and the Americans. But what they do cut out are long scenes of discourse of the Japanese in between each other after that meeting with the U.S.
Just run from like a meeting room to meeting room, conference room. Yeah,
because there's
Shin Godzilla actually made fun of that.
Because there's some Japanese in the government that want the U.S. and the Russians to bomb Godzilla, and then there's the others that don't. So there's all this back and forth. Well, if we do it, then we're being hypocrites, and you're just like looking at your watch like, okay, let's wrap this up. I get the gist.
I want to see the monster. And they do it right off the bat. You get the tease, the fishing vessel, Star Trek level camera.
And you don't, they
running.
Keep it away from you. So one of the heroes here, and it's never stated who this guy is in the US. There's all these fishermen and then some young kid, not kid, but guy in his early 20s on the boat. He's a student, so he's like an intern, kind of. He's like a marine biology student. So he goes out with these fishermen every couple of months. So that's why he's all green and he's seasick, because he's still not used to going out with these guys. They never tell you in the U.S. version who this is. They just get to the Godzilla. So there's rough waters. Suddenly, they run ashore on this volcanic island, and out of the island comes Godzilla. You don't see him. You just see an explosion and you hear the roar.
Yeah.
And then in the next scene, this other guy who's in his early 20s comes yachting along. He's a reporter, and eventually you find that out in the US version, but it's more clear in the Japanese version who he is right from the get-go. So he's a reporter looking for the yacht, trying to get a scoop. He finds it first. He gets on it. And this is one of the funniest scenes. There's actually, I thought it was really cool as a 14-year-old, but it's laughable here.
never seems to hold up.
He finds all the sailors on the boat just mummified. Their bodies.
Yeah, they're like zombies.
So you're thinking, what happened? Did Godzilla's radiation do this? Or then as he's looking around, he finds the student alive in a locker. He's locked himself in. And as he finds the student, some monster comes up from behind him. In the Japanese version, it's described as a sea louse.
Yeah, it's like a giant tick.
Which can fly, apparently. The Japanese version where this thing attacks the guy, you think it's ridiculous in the American version. The thing flies at him at least 4 times in the Japanese version. They smartly cut that down in the American version and just got to he jumps on him and then he stabs it with a knife. Right. So they explain a little later in the Japanese version, they don't in the US, that this sea louse got that big because it fed on Godzilla and grew because of the radiation that it fed on.
Yeah, I mean, and what he was draining the humans of their life force.
It was the sea louse. It was the sea louse that mummified the
sea louse.
Yeah.
So which one was Kenny, the girl's brother?
He was the one that was on the boat. The student.
He's the one he's the kid that's on the boat.
Yeah, he's the
okay. And they, for whatever reason, decided not to tell her that he was alive, but the news reporter did know that.
And they say that Godzilla was awakened by recent volcanic activity, and that's why he's even there in the first place.
Well, so they immediately know it's Godzilla. And again, cutting back to one of these, conference meetings with all these generals, he's like, Godzilla? No, that's a name I've not heard in a long time. We're not sure he'll attack Japan. I'm like, seriously? That's all he does?
Well, in this reality, he's only attacked Japan once. So
once is enough.
But
I saw that movie. Well, we don't want to repeat.
But here's the question that just it's begging to be asked. Is this supposed to be the Godzilla from 1954? Because he died at the end of that movie from the oxygen destroyer.
I guess that's every Godzilla movie, though. He's always vanquished some way or the other, and yet somehow there's just another one right behind him.
Because Raymond Burr at one point says, well, they never found a corpse. Yes, correct. Because you saw him disintegrate at the end of the 1954
he was still
movie.
On the boat. Wasn't he up on the boat? Did he actually witness the body being...
I don't remember if they cut him into scenes on the boat or not.
He
probably did.
He didn't need to be in this one either, to be honest with you. He's just there for the platitudes that he's throwing at these people. I'm like, all right, your blibber blabber is out of control, dude. Just
But in the 1956 American version, at least they cut him into scenes so it looked like he was talking to the Japanese characters. They don't bother with that here. They just cut to the war room in America where Raymond Burr is.
He's interacting with the one general. And this, so there's this red-haired colonel. No, he's a major. This guy's dialogue is so cringy and so laughable. He was my favorite character. This Major
Kyle?
McDonough. I don't know. He had like a Gomer Pyle Southern accent. At one point, he's like, we got ocean temperature 7 degrees higher. Tide's changing like Hollywood romances. Yeah. I'm like, what are you doing?
And so he has a line every time they come to the war room in America. Right. Some stupid line that's supposed to be funny. That's some urban renewal program they got.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah. It's like, okay.
In between shots of people drinking Dr. Pepper, by the way.
I was going to say sponsored by Dr. Pepper here. I'm surprised that Godzilla did not pick a giant sign off the wall and drink it.
I think there were at the time Dr. Pepper commercials with Godzilla in it when this movie came out. Because there was a cross promotion.
Sure, he was hawking Air Jordans, I think, at one point. Or was that Charles Barkley?
And Snickers. Remember the water skiing Godzilla?
Yeah. That's right. I do remember that.
The reporter they both get rescued off the yacht because he finds the student, killed the sea louse. And then the reporter goes back to his J. Jonah Jameson office in the city, says, I got the scoop of a lifetime. This guy says Godzilla. He saw Godzilla. His editor says, nope, calm down. The government has given us a gag order on this. But go talk to this scientist. Why? Right. If you got a gag order, why are you paying this reporter to go talk to a scientist for a story that's never going to be written?
So, and this biophysicist is smart because he's smoking a pipe. So he's like,
yep, of course.
He knows what he's talking about.
Most scientists in Godzilla movies smoke pipes, if you ever noticed that. But and the assistant of this scientist happens to be the sister of the student that was on the boat. Yes. And because there's a gag order, she thinks he's still missing. She doesn't even know he's alive. So
I laugh because this girl is like an Asian Yeardley Smith. But yeah, she doesn't know Kenny's alive. And he rats out the government in a heartbeat, though.
Oh, in a second, because he's like, oh.
Well, listen.
I've got an in here, so I'm going to use it.
Yeah. So, but I will say this submarine attack is pretty put together.
It's and intense. Again, comparing the submarine attack between the U.S. and the Japanese version, there's a lot more dialogue in the Japanese version about that's a U.S. sub coming at us, and we're gonna hit the button and start a war if they don't back off. And there's a few minutes more of tension before it actually hits the sub than is in. Again, the U.S. one just gets right to the point.
Right to it, yeah.
Yep. Yeah. And you're teased again. You see, I don't know if you saw it on your phone watching this, but you see Godzilla's claw kind of shake the sub before it cuts away.
So did they get off an SOS before they were destroyed?
They probably did, because now after the sub has sunk, there's U.S. and Russian tension going on because the Russians think that it's the U.S. that sunk their sub, and the Japanese who like, I guess we better tell them or they're going to go to war over this thing that Godzilla's back. So then the Japanese hold a press conference. Yep, it's Godzilla. And this is when the U.S. and Russian leaders come to Japan like, yeah, we're going to bomb your country to take care of your Godzilla problem.
So we talked numerous times about the fact that this thing eats nuclear materials. That's what powers him. So why would we dump a nuclear bomb on him? This is like throwing an all-you-can-eat buffet at Fat Albert. It's like he's just going to feed off it. It's not going to destroy him. So are we allowed to call them Ruskies, by the way, still, or no?
They do in this movie.
Ruskies.
I think it's just the red-haired guy that calls them.
Yeah, that's fine.
He's allowed because he's an idiot, right?
Yeah, he was a moron. Yeah.
So speaking of morons, the U.S.-based scenes, it's one set, except for when they go to his house and his grandson is playing with these. They couldn't have got a Godzilla toy that he could have been playing with.
But was that the little kid Barry from Close Encounters of the Third Kind?
It maybe was a few years later.
He still had the same hair.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they go to get Raymond Burr to bring him to the war room. Why? So he can just get on his soapbox and lecture them? I
literally asked, why did you invite this guy? Because he saw it once? Like he didn't battle it. Yeah, I saw that. All right, we're going to need your expertise.
Yeah, like, we can get that from looking at the video screens. Thank you very much.
Yeah, no, he's just spouting platitudes all day.
Yep.
He's patronizing bullcrap.
And apparently that's why Raymond Burr agreed to do this, because he took the allegory very seriously. Get this, originally this movie, because the New World, when they saw the original Japanese version, they're like, this is too goofy. Americans are never going to take this seriously. Let's do a What's Up Tiger Lily on this and just redub it and just as a comedy all the way through, even the Japanese dialogue.
Yeah.
They were going to get Lorne Greene to play one of the generals in the war room.
Oh,
until somebody had the bright idea, hey, let's tie this in with the original, just like they are, and get Raymond Burr.
Right.
So they asked him, and he said, I'll do it, but not if it's a comedy. So,
and he gets to write his own dialogue. He wrote that end speech.
Yeah. So he can be thanked for this not being maybe a disaster or a genius movie. I don't know.
I don't know. This is still up there with one of the dumbest Godzilla movies of them all.
Although I will say this, I really like the design of this Godzilla. I love the fangs coming out of his mouth.
Right.
And they actually went as far as to make like an animatronic head.
I did hear that or read that, because there is some size inconsistency. So one thing I will say, which is up until this point, Godzilla has always been this larger than life. He's looming over the landscape. And I think this is the start where like the buildings and everything tower over him.
Yeah.
He's a little more realistic in that sense. And I think every movie afterwards has one of these Super X type ships, like a G-Force that chases after him.
Yeah, and I mean, they are never successful. By the way,
no, and I would not want to be on that team because they never. Right, you're right. Half of them always die. But this thing, you know what it reminds me of? The Norelco Razor that Santa Claus used to ride down in the old commercials.
Right. And it's got its own theme song as well. Dun, 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 dun.
Yeah, the whole soundtrack is basically wah 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 wah. It's like, all right, I get it.
The later movies in the Heisei era smartly go back to the old Godzilla theme. That's not here in this movie.
Yeah, but this is also where we get the idea that he's attracted to birds and that he follows them migrate. Because so this great reveal is fun, and like you said, you see him for the first time. He's got angry eyes going on, and he steals the reactor out of the.
Talking about the reveal. The scene where the camera comes down through the fog and it's Godzilla's point of view looking at the facility. That's a fantastic scene.
No, there's some really nice stuff going on here.
I got goosebumps in the theater watching that because I'm like, this is the first time I've ever been in the theater watching a Godzilla movie, and he's about to show up for the first time on the screen.
I think this might be one of the first times where you get a lot of the upshots too of people actually on the ground, as this thing's like lumbering toward you.
Yeah, and again, the U.S. ambassador, who, just like the Russian ambassador, is arguing for the use of nuclear weapons. Terrible actor. And he's speaking English. And he's in the Japanese version. It's not like he was cut in. But yeah, this guy is not an actor. The Russian guy was acting circles around him. And he wasn't even Russian. I think he was Spanish, that actor who played the Russian.
Definitely playing against type there.
The scene at the nuclear plant is fantastic. And then so Godzilla takes out the reactor and he charges up. You see his spines get all glowy. And then the birds fly by and he like kind of blankly follows them out to sea.
I will say, like, there's some special effects on this, and even on my phone, that just don't hold up. I mean, clearly those birds are all hand-drawn little
especially in the it's very apparent in the photo that they're looking at a little bit later on.
Well, even like when they're, the three main characters are trapped in the high rise and you get the shot from the helicopter, and it's just like a little TV that they stuck in the, behind the window. So it's all flat. It looks like the three people in Superman 2, the Phantom Zone.
Yeah, it's terrible.
There's no depth to them whatsoever. And I'm just terrible. Like, wow, it's like the 1985. I mean, we had good stuff going on then. Yeah, there's some cringeworthy effects thrown in there as well.
But again, there's many more cringeworthy shots in the Japanese version because towards the end, when he's in Tokyo, there's two shots, a la 76 King Kong, of a real size Godzilla foot stomping down that looks so terrible that they cut it out of the American version.
Oh, man.
Yeah. So they were judicious to a point. You can't cut all of Godzilla out, right?
No,
so they took the really embarrassing stuff and they left that on the cutting room floor. Just to give an example of how to the point this is, the power plant attack doesn't happen until 33 minutes into the Japanese version, and it happens 26 minutes in to the US version. So moving things right along here.
Yeah.
Inside the plant, you see like guys on a catwalk, running, panicking. And when Godzilla like crushes the building, the catwalk falls, and you see one guy in slow-mo fall like 5 feet to the ground.
Oh no! Oh, that wasn't so bad.
But then this scene reminded me, it all comes back to the smog monster for me. When the smog monster is sucking up all the pollution from the smokestacks, that was kind of like what this was.
Yeah, he was huffing.
But again, since you watched it on a phone, maybe it wasn't so apparent. But I'm thinking they kept cutting in this movie from full guy in a suit to close up, maybe puppet head.
Yeah,
and then
which is fine. I've done that before.
And then animatronic. There was a couple of shots, like when the Super X is firing the missiles into its mouth, where it looked completely animatronic to me when all the liquid is coming out of his mouth.
Was Carlos Rambaldi on set? That's a deep cut.
We'll discuss him further a little bit. But it's funny that some of these, like Super X attack plane, like they say that in English in the Japanese version. They're just speaking on the subtitles. We have something that we're working on that we think can defeat Godzilla. Oh yeah, what's that? And then the guy actually says it, super attack plane, Super X attack plane, and then the exact subtitle.
I just wish it had a cooler visual to it.
Or a cooler name. Super X attack plane doesn't really.
In 1985, they probably were like, that's cool.
The guy's describing it in the Godzilla 85. It's heat resistant. It'll take a blast, and it's made of titanium alloy. And some guy in the back, are there bombs? And then I would have loved the guy to have said, no, actually, there's not.
Bombs? We didn't think of that. What it can't handle is an apartment complex falling on it.
That's an awesome scene.
That is it's like, just gonna push the building over on it.
Yep,
all right.
He's like, I'm done. I'm done with you. Here you
played,
go,
sir.
Yep.
Well played. Listen, I think this guy was just on shore looking for love. Give him a geisha girl and call it a day.
Well, that's all Kong was doing in his movie. That is
Kong. Kong was, yeah, we'll get there. Yes, but they're pretty proud of himself. They knocked him out. How many people did they kill? Taking this guy out, he's like smashed in the middle of the building.
Well, hopefully they got the evacuation notice, and
or maybe it was the weekend. Everybody was home that day.
Because you saw that bum. He was going to town in that restaurant.
Oh, he was. That is true. That is true. Everything was, and he was a running joke. And unfortunately, he met his demise as well. That's another foot.
That was an eye roller. That character did not need to be in there.
Oh, and he is in the Japanese version.
Oh yeah,
because I could see the Americans like sticking that guy in there. And was that like a straight up Indiana Jones homage of him running away with the turkey underneath his arm or something as Godzilla's barreling down on him?
It's a complete, blue screen. That was almost as bad as Jack Black running from King Kong in the Peter Jackson version. Raymond Burr is just soapboxing the whole time. So at one point he says, we have to understand what he wants. I'm like, did you ever find out what he wanted? What,
No,
you don't say a line like that unless you can actually find out what he wants.
This guy, has he just been sitting around pontificating over this for the last 40 years? And now they're like, all right, let's go see what Steve thinks. Steve.
And he's secretly just over the moon that he can talk about this with somebody, but he's like, you can't break his demeanor, his icy stare.
No, not only that, he tells the general at one point, I hope you succeed, but just know Godzilla will live. So you won't succeed. Way to stay positive, Steve. It's like, what?
Another scene that I love is before he gets to the city, right? The second scene where he comes out of the bay, right? So all the tanks are on the dock on the bay side, and he takes them all out in one fell swoop in one shot when his breath takes them all out. And you see the one guy running on fire. Maybe that was the Wilhelm scream, maybe not. But
no, yeah, I didn't catch the Wilhelm.
And one of the pilots, like during that attack, before he hits the missiles, he says, "Sayonara, sucker!" Like in the. And now we get the subplot. So throw in like Spies Like Us here. You got a nuclear weapon coming down,
an accidental missile launch.
So this is another interesting difference in the Japanese version. That guy on the Russian boat is trying to stop it from being launched. In the U.S. version, he's trying to launch it.
Right.
So they actually had to film that scene where the finger presses the button because that is not in.
There's no like found footage anywhere of somebody pressing a button that we could just like find in the archives.
I think maybe they did. Yeah.
That was actually Chevy Chase's finger.
Yeah. So for the rest of the movie, you've got this incoming missile coming in from space.
And this is a very simple graphic of the global map with Japan right in the middle, and you just got these two red arms. They're tracking the missiles, and who can get to Japan first? Can they intercept it?
Right. So
it's tense enough. This is like Airplane the movie level tension. Close-ups of the guys' faces. They're going 10, 9, and they're zooming in on all their faces. And then the redhead dude says something stupid. I don't remember what it was. Oh, he starts mansplaining to Steve after the missile explodes that, Steve, this is what you're seeing here is nuclear fallout, which is completely harmless. And I'm like, I think even in 1985, we knew that fallout was not a good thing.
And I wonder if Raymond Burr was looking at that guy the same way he does in the movie, like in between takes.
Yeah, it's a weird choice to go with this guy because he's like the dork in Airplane that's running around. It's a brooch. It's a pterodactyl. Like he's just making goofy. Like, what are you even doing in a war room?
At one point he says, "Oh, when he sees Godzilla like breaking stuff up, we should put a uniform on him and sign him up."
You're a moron. My grandma was in that house.
So yeah, Godzilla comes ashore, starts wrecking Tokyo. It's an impressive set because these models tower over this actor. Eventually, the Super X comes. Godzilla blows a hole through one of these buildings, and they're firing back and forth on each other. So in lieu of another monster for him to fight in this movie, the Super X is his enemy, basically.
Yeah.
It does survive the nuclear breath. I'll give the Super X that.
But not the apartment building.
Not the apartment building.
That again.
But before it gets crushed, it does manage to shoot cadmium missiles into Godzilla's mouth and knock him out for a short period of time. Until the U.S. is able to knock out that missile coming in. So why did they ask the U.S. and not Russia to intercept it? Because it's it's the Russians' mistake.
Yeah. Can you send another one and just knock that out of the sky, please? No, we got this, the Americans. We want to be the heroes all the time.
But
we got this.
The harmless fallout revives Godzilla after the cadmium missiles.
And now he's Frankenzilla. He's awakened by nuclear lightning.
Nuclear lightning, yeah.
Dun, 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 dun.
You don't really want to see the humans in peril on the top of the building as the helicopter's pulling them up. This is where you see the two people on the TV screen.
Yeah.
Yep. That are supposed to be in the building, but it's just a little TV screen on the model of the building.
Somebody just puts a screen. Yeah. And will the helicopter be able to lift them in time? No. Edward James Olmos looking guy there.
And the poor bum. The bum actually helps them escape from the building after the helicopter can't take them. And the bum gets stepped on at the end. Again, you talk about that Indiana Jones, terrible Indiana Jones scene.
Right. He did get a free meal before he went, though.
He did. He had a full stomach, at least. But the plan actually works. The plan at the end of the movie is to use the bird sounds to lure Godzilla out of the city. So they have like a huge speaker or satellite dish by this volcano. They want to lure him to a volcano and send him hurtling inside because they rig the volcano with explosives.
What they should have done is just had Steve go to the end of town and just stand on the hill and go, caw, caw. He would have come right there.
I actually like the idea of this because they lean into fact that dinosaurs and birds are linked.
Sure. Right.
And I'm thinking to myself, this is pretty good for 1985.
Right.
But they never revisit this idea again.
No, that he's like kind of right, that he's a little more in tune with nature just in general. I mean, some of these other movies, he's like this deity, this kind of spirit animal that's in touch with the earth. But yeah, you're right. They just blindly follows the birds right into the volcano.
He hears it. Blankly, he again goes into a trance and starts walking away into the water, and then he makes his way to whatever island the volcano is on, and lingers there he goes right up to the edge of the volcano, looks down, and he's like, almost like to say, "What am I doing here?"
No, I know.
I was in a trance, and
he had a little bit of an awakening. He's like, "Wait a minute, where am I?"
Yeah, they hit
this is actually a nice shot.
Yeah. They let the student, the brother, hit the button for all the explosives.
All that work, and it's like, yeah, go ahead. Kenny, you pressed the button. Oh, really? Okay. So yeah, you get that nice silhouette of Godzilla going over, and the shadow on the plume of smoke coming out. It's kind of impressive.
It is, and you hear him like scream in pain as
well, that's where they should have added the Wilhelm scream in there. Just bring it all home.
And they have a shot. It's like I call it the bowling pins shot. First of the Americans in the war room, and then of the Japanese guys, and they're both standing in the same formation.
Oh yes, yes, exactly. It's like, all right, you guys stand like that.
Yep,
that's what we call symmetry.
And the Japanese PM is crying. I'm like, why are you crying? He just destroyed your city.
He's got to clean up that mess. I'm never going to get reelected. Poor Godzilla never gets any love.
No,
I will say. And then Steve just wipes his hands. Well, I'm done here. Like,
you're welcome.
What'd you really do?
He gives a voiceover. Attitude. That's what he does. He gives a voiceover at the end,
which we mentioned. He actually Raymond Burr wrote himself. I'm like, how pompous.
Will we ever see Godzilla again?
Will the box office returns warrant it?
We will, but in the entire Heisei period, they never released another one in the American market, theatrically at least. They all came out years after the fact on DVD, unless you, like myself, got yourself bootleg copies, VHS copies at various record conventions and things that I would go to.
Ooh. But were they dubbed?
They were subtitled somehow.
Okay.
Yeah. So
somebody
I think
had to actually do the work.
Toho had made them for the international English market, but not the US. So Toho themselves had put subtitles on these things. So it was released in August of 1985. Again, I was 14. And again, nobody wanted to go with me to the theater. So I was sitting there alone and I was just loving it. Every second of this. Yes. Yeah. Got it when it came out on VHS. I was all on board with Godzilla 1985.
Nice.
But yeah, I agree. Watching it now, it's got its shortcomings. But again, I really like the design of this guy. They changed it in the next movie. In
every movie they change him.
Godzilla versus Biollante, like they made him really.
I love. One of these days we are covering that because I do enjoy that immensely. Only because that monster is so unique compared to some of the other that he fights. It
is. I watched it recently though, and it's just it has so little screen time. That monster, and it's a long movie. It's kind of disappointing.
I wish I had just tied it in and just found out it was Audrey too.
It looked like Audrey too. It really did.
Correct. Yeah, especially the end sequence that was never shown in theaters where they took over the world.
Can you imagine Lorne Greene in this?
I think he probably would have brought a level of
not as Steve Martin, but like
no, but one of the generals. Yeah. Listen, Commander Adama, he held his own.
Yeah.
Bonanza, Gunsmoke. What? No, was it Gunsmoke? Bonanza. I don't remember now which one.
One of them, Battlestar.
Yeah,
Battlestar. That's all you need to know.
Adama. That's all you need to know.
But I bet you the filmmakers were wishing that they had hired Lorne Greene because apparently Raymond Burr refused to memorize his lines. He insisted on teleprompters being placed all around the set so he could walk around and read his lines wherever he happened to,
he didn't just like tape notes to the back of guys' backs.
Maybe he did that as well.
He was sitting behind that general most of the time. He probably could have just taped the dialogue right to the chair.
I mentioned before that this was going to be a What's Up Tiger Lily type thing. But once they moved away from that and they had hired Raymond Burr, they had actually still given him some funny dialogue. He refused to
read it.
Yep. So that's why they just had this one character say the funny lines.
So they just gave it all to the red-haired guy?
Yeah. Yeah.
I can't imagine some of that lines coming out of Raymond Burr.
The Dr. Pepper placement is very noticeable.
Yeah.
They launched a $10 million ad campaign in relation to this movie. Dr. Pepper did.
They probably made more money than the movie did.
And the theatrical version, I remember this playing before the movie started, and the VHS also had it, the Bambi versus Godzilla short.
Oh, yes. That was like pre-internet.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was big. because it's just a little baby eating, and all of a sudden a giant foot comes down and squishes him.
It's like 30 seconds long, the whole thing.
That's like Monty Python level humor, but good stuff.
So I'm very fond of this, right? Because it was a big deal to me when it came out. I was so excited to see it, and it didn't disappoint me. And I'm really sad that they never used because the next Godzilla, like I said, doesn't look anything like this one, but it's supposed to be, because it comes out of the volcano at the beginning of Godzilla versus PLENTY. So there's carry through. So this is the same Godzilla through the entire Heisei series.
So at the beginning of the next movie, he's just down there going, hello, I'm still alive.
Yep.
I'm just badly burned. Anybody up there?
And they always try at the beginning of each one of these Heisei movies to tie it into what happened to him at the end of the previous. Like, oh, he's back again from where we dumped him in the ocean.
They do minor flashbacks to the original black and white movie, but they don't really show any of the Raymond Burr, even in the American version. They don't really show any of his footage.
No, well, all they're doing
just to bring it home that is the same character.
All they're doing, the reason that they use that footage in this is to watch it on the screen of the war room. So that would be funny if they had a scene of Raymond Burr. Hey, that's me. Look at me.
Right, correct. There I was.
Look how handsome I was. Look.
Yeah. Look at that. I was 300 pounds lighter. Because they kind of do the same thing in the King Kong Lives. And I'm like, do those people get residuals? Because they did use a couple scenes.
Did you read the little trivia about one of the actors and his residual check?
Oh, yes. Yeah, we'll get there. Yeah. Yes, I did read that.
So just judging from what you said previously, you did not see this in the theater originally.
No. If I watch this, it was on VHS back in my days, probably living in Queens somewhere. Yeah, it's unfortunate. I was forced to watch it on my phone.
Yeah,
and it was not the greatest quality to begin with, but it's just one of those things that's out there and not an easy find, like you said, unless you're going to invest and buy a Blu-ray or watch the Japanese version.
And I was so excited at the end, like I thought this was going to usher in like a whole theatrical run of Godzilla movies, but it wasn't to be. I had to wait 5 years, actually more than 5 years, because Godzilla versus PLENTY came out in '89 in Japan. Didn't hit VHS in America until '92. So
wow,
it's almost a decade later. I didn't get to see the next one. But okay, normally we don't give buckets to these movies.
No, correct. No, so, nor do we. If anybody listens to the show, these are special standalone episodes. As you notice, we didn't do any news up front. We don't do concessions.
Yeah.
We just go right into the next movie.
Right into it. Well, actually, we will do something special now. Because I always like to pull some old-timey. When I say old-timey, I mean early 80s.
Well, listen, it's old-timey. Listen, there are people out there listening right now that don't remember the 80s at all.
We're going to go into our own commercial break here. So,
I'm excited.
Of commercials that probably played during the WOR holiday special. So let's go.
The legend of Tony the Tiger. Breakfast! Come and get it! Same old grub again, Cookie. Hey, Joe.
Frosted Flakes partners?
Isn't that, kitty food, stranger?
Way I reckon, Kellogg's Sugar Frosted Flakes have a taste you never outgrow.
Mighty good.
Some folks call them great.
Much obliged, eh, stranger?
Who was that striped man anyway?
It's a taste you never outgrow.
It's an alien.
No kidding. Where?
It's living in America.
I like what they've done with the place.
It loves cats.
Can't get enough of them.
It's Alf, and now it's everywhere.
He's debonair, and yet fuzzy. My parents just don't understand our relationship. I mean, this whole cat thing's been blown all out of proportion. Alf.
Alf, alien life form new from Coleco.
Dr. J! Dr. J! Dr. J! Dr. J! Dr. J! Dr. Chapstick.
Dr. J has changed his nickname to Dr. Chapstick.
Chapstick lip balm is serious medicine. It helps heal chapped lips and helps keep them from chapping in the first place.
Dr. J!
Dr. Chapstick, you. Chapstick has emollients to protect against the wind and cold. Even has a sunscreen. Hey, buddy, have a chapstick.
Hey, thanks, Dr. Chapstick!
Now welcome back to the WOR-TV Holiday Movie Special. Now we bring you the original King Kong.
Okay, we're back, and we are talking King Kong Lives.
There's another one that was not easy to find.
This, I had to pay for it on Amazon.
So here's the deal. My library did not have a physical copy, but I have access to the Hoopla app.
I tried, and it didn't work. It didn't work. It wouldn't play. It wouldn't play for me.
Oh, no. Yeah. So I guess there's a bunch of library systems that have this Hoopla. It's an e-video.
Watching this now, I don't have many memories of this. I don't know if I've ever seen this all the way through.
No, and it's weird because 86, Linda Hamilton was coming off Terminator. So she had some clout.
And this was a direct sequel to the 1976 Kong that I love so much. So I'm like, why didn't I see this in the theater? But then
you watch it, you're like, now I don't know why.
I probably watched the trailer, probably saw Lady Kong, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to sit this one out.
Yeah. Or you did watch it and you just wiped it from your memory.
I wiped it from my memory.
You know what?
I must have watched it. I must have.
I'm sure we have. I knew it existed. If you follow us on YouTube or on Instagram, I was able to find the Japanese movie poster for this, which is gorgeous. Yeah, it's
different than the US.
Beautiful artwork of a giant Kong attacking some tanks and whatnot. A lot of stuff that doesn't really happen in this movie.
Is it like a drawing or is it a photo?
No, it's an illustration. No, it's a full on illustration. It's beautiful. So
Kong never once rampages through a city in this movie, by the way. He's always in the woods or on a mountain or wherever. So you don't get that, Kong loose in New York special flavor that you're accustomed to.
He's like straight up like hanging out. Yeah. He's doing monkey stuff.
Yes, he is.
As you mentioned, he's looking for love.
So this is directed by John Gullerman, who is the director of the 76 Kong. So Ronald Shusett is the writer, is one of the writers who was a co-writer with Dan O'Bannon of Alien.
Yeah, Dan O'Bannon, big name. And
effects, Carlo Rambaldi. He's back, and he doesn't have a pesky Rick Baker to deal with.
No,
it's all
Rick
him.
Baker in this. Yeah,
it's all him, all Carlo. But he promised De Laurentiis back in 76 a full-size animatronic Kong that could perform everything in the script that Kong was required to do.
How'd that work?
And obviously that got shortened to one scene at the end where it could barely lift its arms.
And if anybody's ever watched that Kong movie, you know exactly where that is. Because he is just a giant robot with a weird wonky arm that kind of moves.
So Carlo also went with the man in the ape suit here.
You have to. How else is it going to emote?
Yeah. They actually do tie this in by showing the end scene at the beginning of this movie from the 76 Kong.
Yeah, that's what I was saying, which I'm assuming that they get residuals for this because they show Dwan and Jack.
They actually asked Jeff Bridges and Jessica Lange if they would come back for this, and they both, I don't know if politely declined, but said no.
6 years later or 10 years later. But it's a revisionist history because clearly he dies in that first one. But here he's like, oh, no, his heart's still beating.
He's in a coma for 10 years until
he fell from the top of the World Trade Center. Every bone in this monkey's body would have been broken. And yet, no, we can fix him. He's the bionic.
We can make him better. We can make him faster.
Yeah. $7 million to resurrect him. But why? Why are you investing all this money? And how many monkeys you got to kill to drain their blood to keep him going? Like you can't just Okay. All right. So the premise right off the bat is like, okay, yep, he's still alive. We're going to keep him. And now we got this doctor, Dr. Amy Franklin.
You know who didn't come back for this movie? John Barry, who is a huge part of the first movie because his score is one of my favorite scores of all time of that original Kong. They're using some kind of really weak music.
So
they have to, because they don't have John Barry's music, they put some other music over those 76 scenes. I'm like, come on. And yeah, it doesn't work. It doesn't work for me.
No.
But when you saw it on Hoopla, did it
Yes.
come up as a Studio Canal movie?
I want to say I did take that note, but I want to say yes.
I'm like, because I thought to myself, they bought the rights to this, or did they inherit this? It's like,
it might have been some acquisition.
I'm like, how fancy! Studio Canal.
Studio Canal
is presenting this now.
Look what we got.
So so they show you the last minute or so of 76 Kong, and then cut to Atlanta 10 years later, and Kong is in a coma in this giant room with all these doctors that surround him, including Linda Hamilton, who's like the head doctor, his head doctor. It's his primary. So when he goes to a specialist and they ask for his primary, he's got to put Linda Hamilton down.
Linda Hamilton.
Yep. He needs a blood transfusion before we can operate and give him his giant fake heart. What looks much too big for his body, by the way, that fake heart.
Not only that, he has open heart surgery, and yet he doesn't have a scar the rest
down his chest.
He's got nothing. He's got nothing. She's got some good work going on.
And there's not really precise instruments that they can use either. They just have a crane to take out his old heart.
I think it was like a giant sawzall. I'm like, how big is this scalpel going to be?
It was like one of those arcade claw machines that comes down. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm going to try to get Kong's heart. Oh, come on. Another 50 cents, Mom.
Damn it, I got his pancreas. I don't want that. Regardless, listen, it's no sillier than the last Godzilla Kong movie that we just saw where they replaced his tooth.
Oh yeah, that was pretty bad. That was pretty bad.
We got a giant Jarvet heart. All right, let's put it in there.
So they need a blood transfusion, and they realize they need another monkey, another big monkey, right? Or this is not going to work.
Yeah.
So coincidentally, we've got this other guy. What's this character's name?
I don't even remember what his name. Mitchell.
So they're trying really hard to make this actor Brian Kerwin into like the Indiana Jones of this movie.
Again, he's kind of like the character in the last Kong movie, the guy who replaces the tooth.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, they were leaning into this more than we thought.
But what was he? Just like an adventurer, or was he like an animal guy?
I don't know. He was out and just happened across this
because he just he handled that snake pretty well. Like he knew animals. Like
I do like the fact that no matter what kind of the snake, they always add a rattlesnake effect to it. It's like it's a boa constrictor. They don't make noise. They hiss. They don't. And yet every snake in a movie has to make that noise.
But this guy almost immediately comes across Lady Kong in the jungle of Borneo, right? So this isn't even Skull Island that he's on.
Right. It's like a completely different...
But there's a throwaway line a little bit later that Kong Island and Borneo used to be one landmass. And
we all used to be one landmass.
And that's why...
Pangea.
That's why it's possible for another giant ape to be somewhere else other than Kong Island.
Wow, that's... just like those dinosaurs that just happen to be on another island. I will say this. Adrienne Barbeau has nothing on this ape. She has got some bodacious tatas.
This is cringy. This is cringy. I was like, I felt uncomfortable looking at the screen.
Stop. Look away. Look away. And then he calls and he's like, wait, are you telling us you have a female species? He goes, and a damn good looking one too. I'm like, are you eyeing up this ape? What? When he prostitutes her out, I'll take 10.
So this guy suddenly owns her now. You found her, I own her.
And you have to wonder, how did he capture her?
Or where is she when he's making these phone calls?
Right. I don't know. But they do have the big hands. And I'm wondering if that's a leftover prop from the original movie or if they had to go back and rebuild that.
Oh, maybe. Well, I don't know. I would think they probably, if they had the mechanics of it.
Maybe they probably, after 10 years, you probably have to put new latex.
Skin. Yeah, new latex.
Yeah. Maybe just laid out like a trail of bananas and she just followed it. I don't know. But yeah, we're after her plasma. That's what we need in order to keep Kong alive.
Talk about terrible dialogue in Godzilla 1985. There's one point when Linda Hamilton says to one of the government guys, it's not like we're lancing a hemorrhoid here.
No, that's next.
Yeah, he's got
him
some
over. Wait till you see the backside.
He's got some problems.
He's got some bed sores. He's been laying there for 10 years.
And of course, there's a jump scare when the heart almost falls as they're switching the hearts in the operating room.
Literally a heart attack.
Yeah.
Yeah. What happened to her? Fake heart fell on her.
So, they don't show Lady Kong in transit, right? They
don't show her being caught. All of a sudden, they just have her. Okay.
Yep.
All right.
He negotiates a price. So they buy Lady Kong to bring her over so she can give the blood transfusion. And they just stick her in a warehouse somewhere. I'm like, you've got another Kong. Forget this guy and focus on her.
Right. You're putting your assets in the wrong place right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. But to what end? Why are we saving him?
I don't know.
What are we doing?
Gonna open a zoo? I don't know.
just to say, hey, look what we did.
Yeah.
We saved that. Remember that guy that killed all those people in town?
Yeah, we brought him back. And we're bringing him back to New York. Post-operation, Kong wakes up, looks at the moon, and that's a nice little tie-in to the end of 76 Kong, because he's on the World Trade Center and he looks up at the moon. He looks up at the moon is full, and he smells the female. He
can smell this woman 12 miles away, but he can't smell those humans that are 50 feet in front of him later on. I don't know. So the version I had, he breaks out into song. Did you hear this?
No.
Yeah, he goes, when the moon hits your eye like a big nana pie, that's a monkey. I'll show myself to the door. Thank you very
much. Well, in my version, when he clutches his chest after he tries to escape, he actually said, I'm coming, Elizabeth. I'm coming.
That's a big one. That's a big one, Elizabeth. They don't even give her a name, do they? They just call her Lady Kong.
They just call her Lady Kong. No Queen Kong?
No, he's king. Right. She should have been at least queen. I don't know. At one point, someone even says that on the monkey's going apefish. They should have just brought the red-haired guy from the other movie in.
Lady Kong senses him as well at the same time in her warehouse. So they managed to knock him out with tranquilizers or what have you. And there's one security guard that they leave with King Kong.
One guy. Yeah, you got this. Bob, we're all going to the party. You got this, right? Yeah, I got this.
So Kong is on his back, right? Unconscious. And as the security, you see this, it's another blue screen effect, right? You see the security guard with Kong behind him. Suddenly you see Kong's arm raise. I'm like, is that his arm or something else that's raising?
Well, he did smell that female. That's no banana.
They finally actually meet, right? Because Kong gets out again.
Well, he gets out because he's got like really bad security. Like he's not secured down very hard. But like he goes on a rampage and just all of a sudden we have like car wrecks inside the hangar. Where are all these people going? Why are there's 100 vehicles all driving around running into each other all of a sudden?
Because they're trying to escape, right? But there's no door to get the cars out.
Yeah. They go party it up. They're drinking, they're celebrating. And then he offers the driver home just to be safe. I'm like, dude, you've been pounding drinks. What are you doing? But Kong has other plans.
But yeah, Kong escapes and makes it to the female and carries her off like they're on their honeymoon. Like he's walking through the threshold.
Literally, I wrote honeymoon ridge. He goes to the honeymoon ridge. And then he pulls the old reach around on her. I'm like, what am I watching here? I'm like, he's going to push her face in his lap any second. I'm like, this is straight up monkey porn. I don't think I need to watch this.
Oh, it's something to behold, really.
Yeah, it's weird. And then they're watching. I'm like, just let it happen. If it's going to happen, just let it happen. Don't sit there watching it.
And there's you thought that scene where Kong gives Jessica Lange a bath is goofy when he blows on her. All the goofy smiles that both of these gorillas.
Yes. Yeah.
And the bedroom eyes that they both have
actually
for
makes
each other.
More sense in that one. This one is just like, okay, whatever. And then Linda Hamilton's like, well, hey, why don't you come over here? Because we're primates too. And I'm like, yeah.
And you get a flash of a boobie from Linda Hamilton in this.
That was a big sleeping bag, by the way.
They got to earn that PG-13 rating. It's not just Lady Kong.
I guess so.
Nope.
Yeah. They couldn't build her a bra.
So this is where like the government guy takes over. When did Short Circuit come out? Because this is like the same plot now of Short Circuit.
What's that same year? 86, 85?
The government guy's like, oh, you want this $1 billion animal alive? Nope. Yeah. I don't think so.
Let's just nuke it.
He's literally on the CB. We're having some right, difficulty. Yeah. What did you say? You want me to keep it alive? No, I think you said you want me to kill it. Yep. And then everybody's laughing as he puts the thing down here. Let's go kill it.
Let's go kill it.
So Kong escapes, jumps off a cliff into a river at one point to get away from the army guys.
And all of a sudden it's like pouring out. Like all of a sudden it's like torrential. I'm like, did the nuclear like ignite climate change?
So Lady Kong doesn't get away, but Kong does. Goes into the river. And then suddenly, like, all these hicks come into it.
Oh, yeah, there's hillbillies. Kong versus hillbillies.
Because Kong escapes the government guys only to come upon all these hillbillies.
Yeah.
They dynamite, like, the valley that he's in and bury him up to his neck in rocks. And they're all, like, they're throwing fire at him. And
I will say, no jury's going to convict Kong when he eats these people.
Oh, this is a great scene. Yeah,
he's like, all right, yeah, okay. It tastes like white trash.
He busts out and he breaks one guy in half and eats him.
So IMDb claims that this is the first time we've ever seen Kong eat somebody. And I'm like, that's not true at all. In the original 33, there were scenes where he is gnawing down on one of the locals and they cut it after like one of the initial. It's back in now.
Well, did he actually eat the guy or just chomp him and then spit him out?
To me, that's eating. If you're putting a person inside your mouth, regardless if you actually swallow, you're still eating them. Yeah, that was so horrific for people back in the day that they actually had to cut it from subsequent screenings. But it's on my VHS, the 50th anniversary VHS. And I think it's on the Blu-ray I have too. Yeah, it's just before or after he starts eating the alligators.
This is after. So, yeah, and there's one scene where he picks up an alligator. It's so obviously a baby alligator.
A baby alligator, but because it's just a guy in a suit. So the gator's got to be tiny, but it's still like, it's hysterical.
And I'm thinking to myself, are apes meat eaters or is he just really desperate? Sure. So,
yeah, they should have just called us King Kong mates.
The rednecks not afraid of him whatsoever. There's one guy just rides through his legs on his motorcycle. Yeah.
I know. It's like challenge accepted. Look at this thing. It's crazy. There's a lot going on here. We do get a Lamborghini that gets destroyed.
Yes, we do.
And then we get like this War of the Gargantuas level hide and seek thing going on. The army's after him. And I think it's just the moon. The moon is making him Randy. So
he was Randy at some point because Lady Kong is with child.
He knocks her up.
Yeah.
What is the gestation period of a giant ape, by the way?
You thought that the end of the 76 Kong was violent as they're shooting him on the top of the World Trade Center. He's Swiss cheese by the end of this movie. And he's still walking.
Again, why did we save him if we're just going to shoot him again? This is not a good use of our resources at all. And now she's pregnant, so now you got another one on the way.
And
well played. Scientist.
And so she gives birth in like a barn. She's, she takes up the entire barn, but she gives birth, and it's not even like an infant. It's just like some guy, some human.
It looks like one of those monkey grams that you guy shows up at your house with some balloons to sing you happy birthday.
He's like as tall as Linda Hamilton and the other guy.
Yeah, and it's not like it's not like a big monkey head and a little baby body. No, it's a guy in a costume.
It's like he was born as like a 7-year-old. He
looks
monkey.
like a reject from the opening of 2001: A Space Odyssey. And I'm like, I hope Kong picks him up and throws him. No, that didn't happen. And you're like, son of Kong. There it is.
No, Kong is shot up, like Swiss cheese, like I said, and manages after he kills all the army guys to crawl over and, greet his son before he dies.
This kid's already in therapy now. I'm just born and now my dad is dead. Who did that? All those scientist guys over there. All right, I'll exact revenge on them later.
Lady Kong and the little kid Kong spend their days in Borneo. So Martin, or whatever his name is, Mitchell, brings him back free in the wild.
when it flashes forward and they're in Borneo, it's still some guy in an ape suit. It's not even any
it's
bigger.
Not even like a bigger.
And he's like swinging like Tarzan, with vines.
And anatomically, it's completely incorrect. He doesn't look like a baby ape in any way, shape, or form. No wonder why we wiped this from our memory.
Oh, man. This was released in December of 1986, December 19th. So this is like a Christmas movie.
Wow.
They usually release huge movies around Christmas.
I do like my horny monkeys available to me during the holidays.
It's released almost 10 years to the day after the 76 Kong.
Rick Baker had to have been just laughing.
This is no surprise. I know, this is what Rambaldi wanted to do,
Yeah.
But, we've been attacked before for giving the short shrift to Rambaldi.
Yeah, well,
this is the guy that created, E.T.
E.T.
Alien. So
yeah, no,
give this guy his props.
His credentials are up there, but yeah. In this regard. Well, so you mentioned that the director, John Gillerman. So apparently the year before, his son died while he was filming Sheena, Queen of the Jungle or whatever that.
Oh yeah, Tanya Roberts.
So this guy was like depressed. He was grief stricken, and he would just disappear for days on end while this filming was going on, and the production staff had to kind of cover for them. So they brought in this kid, Charles McCracken, who was only 21 years old. He was a documentary filmmaker and filmed large portions of this. He doesn't get credit for it, but they were covering for this guy.
This was his last theatrical movie as a director.
Horrible.
Hey, if he only ever made King Kong 76 and Sheena, then he is up there in my book.
Yeah, obviously this guy had much more going on at the time, but I think you can point fingers at a lot of people for this mess.
You can point finger at the movie itself for this, but it cost $18 million to make. It only made $4 million at the U.S. box office, but there's a light at the end of this tunnel, almost a small light. Its total worldwide box office was $48 million, and that is completely due to it being a huge hit in Russia, of all places. It made the equivalent of $44 million in Russia alone.
Wow.
And it still wasn't profitable because of the marketing costs.
You got to get
it cost $14 million to make. It made worldwide almost $50 million, and they still lost money on this.
Wow.
It ran into trouble. There was a battle between King Kong Lives and Siskel and Ebert. Did you read about this?
No, I did not hear this. Although that makes sense.
DEG, which was De Laurentiis Entertainment Group, Dino's company, said that only if Siskel and Ebert gave it a good review could they have clips to show on their national syndicated TV show.
That's not how that works.
That's not how it works. And obviously they did not like it, so they did not get clips to show for the...
So did they just not review it, or did they...
No, they still reviewed it, but they made a point of saying there's nothing that DEG... There's not a scene that DEG feels comfortable with letting you see.
So they just turned it back on them.
Yeah.
Wow. They're like, yep, not even worth showing you clips.
So should we talk about the residual story?
Yeah, tell this story because this is fun.
The guy who plays the head lab guy, or Linda Hamilton's boss in this movie, Peter Michael Getz.
Yeah.
One residual check he received. So I guess, this is when you make money off of the box office returns. The one residual check he received for King Kong Lives was 3 cents. And he framed it, and he still has it.
How much was a stamp back then?
It was much more than 3 cents.
They actually lost money mailing a 3 cent check. So he framed it, right?
Yeah, I think from what I read that he attached it to the movie poster, and he's got that framed in his house.
There you go. Listen, that's a better story than this movie.
Yeah.
Did you hear some of the rejected ideas that they wanted to do with this?
I did, but please share.
Yeah. So I guess there was quite a few iterations of the story before. You got 10 years to come up with something.
Yeah, De Laurentiis wanted to make a sequel like immediately in 1977.
Sure. But wait a minute, we killed him. No one cares. I mean, we see it with Godzilla movies, you can figure it out.
When Jaws died, nobody cried.
Nobody cried. That's true. So
when Mike Kong dies, everybody cried.
Well, he was relatable.
Yeah,
he was just a guy hanging out by himself. He gets bamboozled by this chick. He got catfished.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, me take you into town, show you a good time. Oh yeah, by the way, these planes are going to kill you. So apparently one of the ideas was Kong was going to be trained by the U.S. Army to become a living weapon and go to Russia to win the Cold War. You think they would have liked that?
No,
Russian
they
movie
wouldn't.
Audience?
Yeah. They would have lost $49 million there. Right. Would they have given him like a uniform to wear too? Like a Captain America uniform kind of thing?
That would have been solid. How about a mechanical hand?
He needs a helmet to cover that cone head. That's what he needs.
Well, there's also another version where Kong went to space, and one which seems to be inspired by E.T., in which Kong would be led around by a group of children.
Was there a scene where he was buried in stuffed animals in the
in the girl's closet?
Yeah.
We almost got a Son of Kong animated series spinoff as well, and that did not happen.
I did read that as well. Yeah,
that would have been Filmation, who I guess some of these ideas they just turned around and made them into Gilligan's Planet. But one of them, Kid Kong, would be able to change his size at will and travel to various different planets, as well as go underwater in a submarine made out of giant coconuts and bamboo called the Coco Nautilus. I want to see that.
Just as plausible as what takes place in this movie.
Shockingly, Kid Kong never got off the ground. Filmation. All right, here's what I'm thinking. Coconut submarine. Okay, go on.
I'm listening.
And he travels to other planets. Wait, in a submarine? It's like the Beatles? What are we doing here?
Or the Great Space Coaster.
Oh, spray can. No, listen, no good news is good news.
Peter Weller turned this down to do RoboCop. Good choice.
Well played. Wait, would he have played Kong?
He would have played Mitchell.
Oh, no. It would have been better off playing Kong. Oh, yeah. What was that? 87?
Yeah.
Yeah. 86, 87, somewhere in there.
Linda Hamilton only took the role because she saw that it didn't hurt Jessica Lange, and she actually became very seriously
that's why
regarded.
Jessica Lange did not come back. She's like, I'm kind of above that.
By all accounts, she was horrified at the final product.
On the red carpet, she's all proud of it, and then she sits in the theater and she's like, son of a bitch. So what'd she do after that? She went and made Beauty and the Beast. She's like,
and then T2, right? And then T2.
Well, T2, yeah.
And this was one of the many factors that caused the DEG company, De Laurentiis' company, to go bankrupt.
Kong bankrupt. Kong made his name and yet at the same time bankrupted him.
Yeah.
Wow, that's a dual-edged sword.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he did have Orca and those Conan movies, but
yeah. Listen, just like John Gull, I hold De Laurentiis in very high regard.
No, I agree.
Yeah,
this was a stinker.
King Kong lives, notwithstanding from that statement. So
yeah, it's frustrating that we don't have that many Kong movies to actually lean into, and this is one of them.
Right. Yeah.
It is something else. It is something to behold. That is for sure.
One of these things where you're just in disbelief that it ever got made to begin with.
I mean, you push long enough, eventually someone's like, oh, all right, yeah.
Because what audience are they going for? Because they didn't get me, who was a giant monster enthusiast, right? So I don't know. I don't know
either. I don't know.
And with that, I'm sad to say that this year's Thanksgiving episode has come to an end.
Time to scrape off your plate and fall asleep to some football.
Yeah. Or go put on Skull Island or...
Yeah, you'll have to wait a bit for us to talk about that one.
Yeah, to get the taste out of your mouth.
Cleanse the palate,
stinker.
Right?
Yeah. So as always, it's been a pleasure.
Yes, absolutely. Are we going to announce next week's episode or are we going to leave it be?
No, let's announce it,
All right. Since it is coming up, it will drop the end of November.
Right. And the original movie of what our two movies next episode are going to be based on was always a holiday favorite anyway.
Sure.
So it's,
yeah. I think it's smart of them to actually drop this into Thanksgiving.
Absolutely. Yeah. Do the honors. What are we doing next episode?
So we are going to Oz. We will be covering the theatrical release of Wicked, which is based on the Broadway play, which I have seen on Broadway.
You have? Okay. You'll be able to bring some references.
It's been years, but yes, I should be able to bring some perspective and some contrasting, obviously, two different mediums. But we are going to be pairing this up with a cult classic. And I am shocked to learn that you have never seen this.
No. Maybe I was a little bit freaked out by it, so I never wanted to see it.
No, you may be freaked out by it even when you watch it now. We are talking about Return to Oz, which is available on Disney Plus.
Okay.
And it is a direct sequel to the 1939 Wizard of Oz.
39. Okay. We've already covered the Wizard of Oz, by the way, and we'll give you all that information, I'm sure, next time.
But I also think this might be a good opportunity to kind of just talk about Agatha all along, since we're in the witches realm, since we're going down the witches road.
Okay. I'll have to watch. I have not watched it since the first episode, so I'll have to catch up.
Well, the full series is dropped. I think there's 8 episodes. Well, we don't have to get into it too long, but we can just, a little on the back end. What else have we done? And I think it's a nice pairing since we got some witch action going on here.
All right.
So, and that's it. So happy Thanksgiving, everybody. Enjoy your holiday.
Yes.
Eat that turkey. Get some turkey sandwiches for lunches and go watch a King Kong and Godzilla movie. Revel.
Thanks, everybody.
All right. Thank you, as always.
Bye.
Until next time. Bye.
If you like what you just heard, be sure to follow TMI Confessionals of the Nerd Kind on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, Spotify, or whatever you listen to your podcasts on. Also, be sure to email us at tmipodcast2018@gmail.com.
You can also follow us on all of our socials. We're on Instagram, X, Facebook, Threads. Just go to tmiconfessionalspodcast.com. All of our links are there. And leave us a 5-star review. See you at the concession stand.
It was like one of those arcade claw machines that comes down. Yeah. So I'm going to try to get Kong's heart. Oh, come on. Another 50 cents, Mom.
Damn it, I got his pancreas. I don't want that.